Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Everything Theater Podcast, the podcast where we talk about,
Everything theater. Hi, I'm Benita Zahn.
and I'm Ellen Cribbs.
And it's so exciting because we really can talk really everything theater, not just maybe when, if, how, but wow, the world of Broadway is reopening and in a big way, Ellen.
My email was chock full of announcements today about all the shows, opening dates, when you can get tickets. It feels like the world is coming back.
Exactly. Now the question is masked or unmasked, vaccinated, not vaccinated, how many bodies, how many heinies in the seats but hey, Hamilton sold out.
Really? Already? I
Sold
shouldn't be surprised.
so
Yeah.
and among the shows that are opening, well, one of the producers of a number of the shows that are opening is our guest tonight, Elliott Masie. Saratoga, living here now for many, many years. And Elliott, you're fascinating in that theater wasn't your first world. I mean, you're the guy who created learning.
Yeah, my background is in some ways storytelling. And the first, how do we do storytelling in education and certainly in the corporate world of e-learning? But I was always a kid who loved theater. I went to the original Man of La Mancha down in the village and many things. And about 12 years ago, my wife and I decided we were going to become tiny little parts of a production. And now we've been producers of 29 Broadway and off-Broadway shows.
And Mrs. Doubtfire, you and I were chatting a little bit. That's coming, right?
It is coming, and I literally had to write it down. It looks like the October 20th is going to be our first day there, and it's very exciting. Everyone's been sort of in bated breath poised. You're absolutely correct. There's a lot we don't know. And I will tell you that the exciting phone calls were all about shows are starting. And the other exciting phone calls was auditions and people running to their doctor to see if they can lose the COVID-20 that I gained and others gained. But there are other conversations, and they're not depressing. They're very realistic to say COVID's been about a world we don't know. And we don't yet know how it's going to work. Will there be physical distancing? Will everyone need to show their vaccination? What worries me, but we'll solve it, are bathrooms. I mean, we don't have great bathrooms. And backstage you both have a theater background. Backstage is a Dungeness background. Having said all of that, theater is a big part of not only New York, but of the nation's economy and emotional rebound. And I think the good news is we'll see investment and creativity, but we don't know. When they say 100% of the tickets are for sale, that may be 100% of what they can sell. So I think there's going to be a need for agility along the way. And it's going to be fascinating, and like theater, it's going to have a storyline that probably goes up and down with an intermission, and maybe there'll be a big song at the end. But that's my hope.
Usually there is, and confetti. Elliott, let me break down some of what you talked about. And I really want to take it from, did we put the cart before the horse? Should all the things you just delineated have been worked out in advance of saying, okay, the box office is open? Are we, and I hate to ask two questions at once, but I will. Are we in some ways potentially setting ourselves up for disappointment because we didn't do that?
It's a difficult question to answer, Benita, and to answer it authentically, because so much of what this year plus of the pandemic has been about what we don't know. Who would have thought that we've had 2 vaccinations and that we could go into a restaurant without a mask? I wish that we were able to bring together the whole theater industry in a way that would have not only prepared us a bit better. There are going to be some very interesting union conversations There are going to be very interesting conversations with producers who are investors, with the city. And at the same time, to make your question even more complicated, the pandemic surfaced a lot of issues that weren't about the virus in our world. Black Lives Matter, AAPI hate, unemployment, the election, and the like. Well, the pandemic has also surfaced issues in theater around representation, around the Scott Rudin conversation. And, they're interesting. Karen Oliva is somebody I know, and she made a decision not to come back to Broadway,
Right.
and she's not alone. I wish we were in a dynamic way in which we could have worked that all, but Broadway's not a democracy. It's somewhat hierarchical. And I'm never certain that our government, in the big G word, whether it's New York or New York City or the federal government, understands the engine that the arts are to a democracy. To me,
I'm going to jump in and say, I don't think they do.
They don't.
And I think I see Ellen's nodding.
Yeah.
I don't think they do. I think there's an ephemeral quality to theater that
Right.
is very hard for those who haven't been touched by it to really understand and embrace. I think it can be scary.
Mhm.
I think that in some ways, people in the arts are threatening to those who don't see the world that way. And people in the arts generally, while they may be beholden to each other, are not beholden to another hierarchical, patriarchal establishment.
Yeah.
That makes you scary.
And if we were talking about manufacturing, up here in Saratoga, we've got Global Foundries, and my friend Tom is the head of CEO of Global Foundries. The government is going to put millions and billions of dollars into the chip industry because it's important to the future of this country. Well, I would argue that I know of a number that's somewhere between 70 and 100,000 artists who've been unemployed for the last year and a piece. So if I were king or president, or better yet, we'll get a woman to be one of those, I would wish that we would go out and buy 1 million tickets, not to pay me as a producer, but to reboot what the role of arts would be. At our house tonight, Elizabeth Sobel was visiting, and she runs our Saratoga Performing Arts Center. I wish we had the dollars in which we could invite, as it opens up, tens of thousands of people from the Capital District to come there. I wish that our theaters would actually have some theater that was relevant to this moment. 9/11 actually birthed Mamma Mia. After Kennedy was shot, it was The Singing Nun came out and the like. But how are we going to use the arts, music and theater, and how are we going to use it to deal with the mental health of our country, with the malaise that's
Elliott,
there?
let me ask you, Ellen and I, a few weeks ago, I interviewed David Kenner, who has and I think I had mentioned to you, David's theater is, Ellen, help me.
Oh my gosh.
I went and put you on. Well, anyway, David has a theater. It'll come to us as we're talking, in the city. And he said something that rang very true with us, and it actually changed the programming at Park Stage Company. He said that the sense in the city was that people want entertainment, in that they want to laugh now. We have been through the heartrending stuff. And when Park Stage was looking to reopen, there was another title. And I had a conversation with the producing artistic director, Owen Smith, about what David said. And he changed the title, and we're doing I Love You, You're Perfect, Now Change.
I'm going to be producing an all-Asian, not-for-profit gentleman's guide. And we're doing it. It's still going to be on green screen because we want to get it out quickly. But it is a wonderful piece. And how better to talk about, let's say, AAPI hate, rather than make it a conversation about the politics, but to cast it in a way that we're making a statement. My friend Ali Ewoldt,
Who we'll
Ali
be
first,
speaking with. Thank you
right,
very much.
yeah, and Ali first, American Asian, who has been in the lead in Phantom of the Opera, and is literally a change agent in that. I don't think we understand the messaging, the mental health messaging that theater will do. Now, you mentioned Hamilton, and you can never use this as a benchmark because it's just magically different. But here's what impresses me. I, as a producer, love to go and talk to people online for theaters before they go in. There are people coming to Hamilton who have never seen the show and know every lyric. And then they'll get into a conversation about, one of them was really funny, and they said, I suddenly had to tell my kid that not all of the presidents early on were Black. But Hamilton played a role. One of the shows that we're producing internationally and is also going to open again in New York is Come From Away. Wow, people walk out of that show just on fire and the like. So
Is
it's
it
going to
okay?
come
I
back.
cried through most of it, having covered 9/11.
Yeah.
I think I had tears coming down my face.
Yeah.
Even now thinking about it.
Yeah.
Ellen, you've seen it.
I actually still haven't seen it.
Wait,
Can you
but
believe?
did.
But no, but I know. But every time I talk to my mom about it, she's like, it's just a show that makes you believe in the good of people. And that's the power of theater.
I think to go way back to your wonderful question, Benita, is the pandemic has not been a single line algebraic equation. When we figure out the variables, we know what the end result is. It's been a multi-line quadratic equation with mystical variables in it. So suddenly it's not as important to wear a mask, or if I don't wear a mask, I'm telling you who I voted for in the election, or any number of other things. And so we're at a moment, and this is what's really interesting, and I'll make a prediction. Theater in the national tours will do better than Broadway. Okay. I talked to Philip Morris. I will guarantee you that Proctor's is going to do really, really well. In fact, a show I produced on Broadway will be on tour, The Prom. Okay.
You did The Prom. We should point this out. You've been a producer of The Prom, The Cher Show, American Son, SpongeBob SquarePants,
Allegiance,
Kinky Boots.
Yeah. And Alan Cumming doing a one-person Macbeth and some other shows. But
The Trip to Bountiful, Godspell. These are let's just pause for a second, Elliott. How do you decide what show you're going to open the checkbook for, that you're going to go to the dance with?
Yeah. Well, let's back up and to answer that. When you open up the checkbook as a producer, unless you're really on some very hallucinogenic drugs, you're never going to get your money back. You'll get some of it, and if you get it back, you'll use it on something else. Kinky Boots, wonderful, wonderful. I think I got 117% of what we put in, but I got to know Cyndi Lauper, and we're working with other folks in that show. I view as a producer that I'm a patron. The same way I could be a patron of Lincoln Center or the like. I view I'm a patron. The thing that drives me to be a patron is really simple. It's telling a message. It's telling a story that needs to be told to make people laugh, and some of the ones I didn't produce are incredible. Band's Visit, I didn't produce. And I love that show. And my friend, Etai Benton, who's in it, just got the phone call today that Company is opening. So he's going to be going over to Company. And so
is he playing Bobby?
Yeah. Yeah. It is an amazingly powerful experience of storytelling. And so that's what it's about. So for me, I don't care whether it has music or whether it's funny. American Son was very, very serious show, but it's got to tell a story. And I know that it's worked if when afterwards people tell you about the story. Yeah, they loved Billy Porter in Kinky Boots, but millions of people will go to see shows and they won't remember the name of the star, but they'll walk away with the story. And that's my view of it. And increasingly, and I think coming out of the pandemic, I'm gonna put my patron dollars, my investment dollars into things that I think will evolve theater to next, including, and this is the world that you've been living in as well, Benita. We used to think that we did a show, it went to small theaters, it went to off Broadway, it went to Broadway, it toured the country, it toured internationally, and a few of them went into a movie film model. Forget it. Look at what the Old Vic is doing in England. They're now saying every single play at the Old Vic will be shot and filmed and shown. So suddenly we're going to merge the two storytelling pieces of this. Classical producers will hate what I'm about to say. I think we're going to see that some of our best shows will become games, become computer games. You know, I think that, imagine a Come From Away game, or imagine a Hamilton game, or the like, because I think we're going to become much more diversified in media, including the ability to watch a Broadway show 20 minutes a day for 10 days until you've seen it all.
Okay, look, I think this excites us. But let me ask, and I want to use sports as the metaphor, if you will. We can't watch the Yankees and the Mets here in Albany when they're playing at home.
Yep.
We get blacked out because they are afraid they're not going to sell tickets in New York, which at this moment in time, I think is vile for them to do that. I'm going on record. I think it's absolutely ridiculous because people aren't traveling like they did.
Right.
Put that heartburn aside. They black out the games because they want you to come. Now we're going to take live theater and make it available streaming. So drawing that analogy, doesn't that sort of steal from the live theater?
It does if you think of it in a steal moment, but let's think of it in a different moment. The investors, our partners in it, are going to, in all likelihood, be the studios. So here's an interesting example. I was one of the lead producers, or co-producers, that they say, hundreds of thousands of dollars for the Prom. And it was a great show. And we didn't sell tickets as much as we could. And while we got, I got a Drama Desk Award and got nominated for Tonys, it closed. And along the way, Ryan Murphy saw it and said, I'm going to make a movie out of it. And I'm going to get Barbara Streisand and James and others in it. Guess what? I don't have a single half of a 0.1% of that. Why? Because the ownership of that show is with the two executive producers and with the authors. None of our cast was cast in it. And so even though they're dancing some of the shows. So what I'm arguing is that we've got to accept that we're now in the new generation. And that new generation is going to be multiple, not multimedia, but multiple types of media that will harness to tell a story. And we may, in fact, find, and this is the most interesting thing, we may find that things are on Broadway only long enough to make a really good video of them, in which case they're going to kick to Netflix or to Apple or the like, and then go to regionals and then make their way back. So it's going to be an interesting evolution of the development and the control. Now, I'm still worried it's hierarchical, which means that as much as we talk about BIPOC and the like, you know, people look more like me. You know, I'm going to be 71 on Thursday, white guy.
Happy
you know,
birthday.
Like, yeah, thank you. But I mean,
yeah,
the only way we're going to get diversity is if the people producing the show reflect our society. And I actually believe that actors need to be wired in to the success of the show. You know, I actually, in every new thing that I'm at an executive producer level in, I'm building it in so that if we make money, the actors make money. And Lin Miranda was right up front to be the first one to talk about it. But this is the dilemma. I'm not sure we're yet ready to put theater in my exciting smoothie blender that would give us what we're doing. But the box office may push us to get there, because the dilemma in New York that we're going to face is until people go back to the office in New York City is not going to bounce back. I have an apartment on 48th and 8th, and I am surrounded by restaurants that aren't open, and they can stay open just for theater nights.
Yeah.
And so if New York doesn't rebound with people who are working there, and then that we pull tourists there. So I think the marketplace may actually give permission for some pretty intense revolution around what theater is going to be.
Hmm.
And there'll be disruptors. Keep your eye on the Apollo Theater. We've all wanted, I'm an associate member of the Broadway League. Many of us would love to have Broadway extend beyond Broadway to include Gotham Hall, to include the Apollo Theater, to include the hopefully bankrupt strip joints that are over on the West Side, to where we start to think theater. There's no reason that Broadway has to just be houses with 1,000 people. Some of the best shows should be in 300-person houses.
You're really talking as a disruptor now.
Oh yeah, I am. Yeah,
really, because and then you know that there's Broadway and off Broadway.
Yeah,
it's delightful. I did off Broadway, right? I mean, being a little facetious, but what's the strip on 40? Is it 45th? And I can't think of the two or three theaters down that way, way down on the West Side. Right. Big houses, well known. I think also of the Duke.
Little Schubert. One of them is called the Little Schubert.
Yeah, and there's the Duke, which is closer up, and the American. Should they be Broadway? They're small houses.
Absolutely. I don't want it to be that Broadway means that it's prime realty and everything else is discount houses. It's not. That's why the one disruptor that's worked there is the not-for-profit area. So take a look at what's come out of the public theater that Oscar can do there. I was on the Williamstown Theater Festival board. I'm not there anymore, but I helped bring Seared with Raul Esparza to MCC. So our not-for-profits are the interesting middle, but we still think of it as, Michelin 4-star is right on Broadway. Well, I got to tell you, the majority of equity actors they can't get a job on Broadway, but they're really good. The majority of plays can. Right now, to really launch a play on Broadway, if it's not a musical, is about $3 to $7 million. If it's a musical, it's $13 to $18 million. It's crazy. It's not what the venture world does with technology. It's not what we do. So I actually think, and this is the disruptor in me, this is the entrepreneur disruptor in me, that the marketplace will call for things that are different. I would suspect that we may see some cruise ships that could be docked over by 12th and convert them to be, in a sense, theater and dining.
And then if you go, what is it, 3 miles off? Although now you can gamble, so it doesn't matter.
No, I don't mind. I mean, we can actually keep them right at the dock if people don't want to get nauseous there. But it's very historic old boy for the most part, some old women, but mainly old boy models that looks at Broadway in a very strict sense. But the innovation that we need.
Elliott.
What?
Still comes down to money, and there are still as you point out, the old white guys who are still running, and until they say come in or move over, well, that goes to your disruptor. That then leaves everybody else coming in from the sides to come in and say, okay, we're here and we've got critical mass.
Yeah. Well, if we really think about it, and I do as an entrepreneur, money will go where it can have the greatest impact. And right now, it's stacked. We've got two families that own an awful lot of the theaters. I mean, there are like Jordan Roth, who I know owns a couple of them. But I actually think we got to break that up. I think we've got to I'm an entrepreneur. I want the ability for somebody to roll something out. There are amazing empty spaces now in New York. there's one building that the store is closed, and they put a tennis court on the first floor in the store. I think we could do an amazing amount with theater that doesn't have to be limited to that. You would use technology. Why do I have to go to the box office to buy a ticket? I know I can do it online, but why can't I go to any ATM in New York and do that? And then we get really interesting. Look at how Disney has been brilliant in how they market Disney and how they market their own shows. We need to understand, how do we get people into the theater? And a lot of producers like me who have a social conscience, we give money to bring high school students in there. But I grew up in New York City, and I could go for $3.99 to see a Tuesday night show. And I got to tell you, it had an impact on me. And I could go for $3.99 and see a hockey game from the nosebleed seats. And I had nosebleed seats at Oliver, but I enjoyed it.
Ellen, take it away.
So the last little bit of our interview is all about you, Elliott. It's the close-up section. So Elliott, are you ready for your close-up?
I'm ready. Hit me with it.
So someone who comes from an educational technology world, what was it that made you say, I want to get into this theater thing?
The number one thing was that the experience that you have in the theater is organic. It's organic, and it's different in a way than if I just see a movie or I read a book. There's something happening. You're breathing the air. One of my good friends and colleagues that I produce is Leah Salonga. And Leah will talk about every time she goes on stage for us in Allegiance, but she's once on an island, and she says, you breathe the air that they're sharing with the people there, and something happens that's organic and dynamic. So there is no constant in it. I mean, I even watch when does the baton go down and when do we close? And sometimes it's at 10:27 and sometimes it's at 10:29. And then I think, how is the audience different that it closed 2 minutes later? And what was the experience different? That's the short, big, or personal answer, Ellen.
And what show has had the biggest impact personally on your life, whether it's something you worked on or just something you saw?
Well, it'll be interesting. You can ask Ali about this. Les Mis. I saw Les Mis in London when it came out. I saw Les Mis in New York. I've seen Les Mis in 2 other countries. I've never been a producer there. I've known some of the cast. Les Mis told a piece of history in a way that each time I've seen it, it's made me cry, it's made me smile, and ironically, it's made me believe in the power of belief. It's wow.
I'm right there with you. That's mine too. And I'm hung up on the whole idea of video games. That just fascinates me, that concept that we could move that way. If you thought of a show that would adapt well to a video game, what would be your first pick?
Well, I can take it in 2 different directions. I think one of the shows that could go really well is one of the shows that I produced and has closed is Kinky Boots, which is, without having to get kinky, is a really interesting element. You could kind of turn it into Clue and the like. The other show that I think would be an enormously powerful one, and obviously it would be immediately successful, is Hamilton, where you could have Hamilton that could run for 40 different parts of history. It doesn't have to be just around the original cast of that. And then I think we could go back into history. I would love to play Oklahoma. I mean, I ran the lights in Oklahoma at Stuyvesant High School, where we had to borrow women. It was an all boys high school then, but the idea that you could look at cowboys and the ranchers could be friends, like it could be exciting, historic, and and capture imagination. And I know people in the gaming industry, and they're thirsty for good stories, but they never look over on Broadway as the opportunity.
And it's not, you've had such an extensive life behind the scenes. Have you ever graced the stage yourself?
No. I've been tempted, I've been prodded, and I am a public speaker, so I'm not. I can hold an audience for an hour or 4 hours doing content. I'm also a real believer in the craft of theater. I think it's not winging it. When we see a violinist, we understand that she or he has been playing violin for 20 years. And most of the actors that have been successful have been on careers that are that long. And so maybe if I went back, I would do it. But I actually love being an enabler of other people's skills. And the only hard part about being a producer is that sometimes you have to go to a theater and tell people that the show is closed. And not because they did anything bad, but in the marketplace, the show is closed. So I'll end with a thought that I think we need to figure out how to get sustainability for people in theater. I think we need to multitask them in skills so that when they're no longer able to work on the stage, they could be working in other parts of theater, backstage or the like, and other skills. And I think we have to make sure that it's not just students of privileged parents who get to the top of that. I think we need to find routes for kids who really come out. I'm honored to be one of the sponsors of Rosie's Kids and what she does there. And I love to go there and watch these kids nurture, and whether or not they ever get on a stage, their definition of themselves is that they're working on their voice, or they're working on their dance, or they're working on their acting. And we need to open that up to the widest amount, not just to parents who are able to send their kids to wonderful but paid theater camps.
Well, it is a changing world, and hopefully that's one of the changes coming with all the other big changes this year. Well, Elliott, it has been so lovely talking to you. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Greatly appreciate your time and sharing some really exciting thoughts on where theater can go.
And Broadway is coming back in whatever form it is. So get a friend, go down, see it, take the train, drive, fly, walk, and support the arts.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We just had a lovely discussion with Elliott Masie, and there's a name that you may have heard once or twice. He's a big fan.
Or as I say, 45 times.
Exactly. Big fan of this amazing Broadway performer. We're happy to have Ali Ewoldt. How are you, Ali?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an exciting time.
Yeah,
it is. There's much happening in the world, which is quite the change, I think.
So where are you currently? What's this year been like? What projects were on hold for you? What are you going back to? What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm currently based in the city on the Upper West Side in my small studio apartment that contains my entire life at this point. My dog and I are here. But we did spend the first 4 months last year of the pandemic at my parents' house in Westchester County. So that was nice to have a little space. The lovely small village of Pleasantville was very welcoming to us for about 4 months. And, we found that it was challenging to not be able to work and to perform and to create. And so I did a little sing along with my neighbors. We ended up doing a video of Les Mis. I got my amazing neighbors to sing some parody lyrics. We had some great kids on the block. And then my parents and I drove around in our car. I was out of the sunroof filming while everybody sort of marched on their front lawns. And it became kind of this amazing thing that sort of keeps recurring. We ended up getting picked up for like a local commercial. But it was sort of evidence to me of, how much we need the arts, how much I need personally to get to perform and create and connect to people. Obviously, we were trying to do it in a way that was outside and safe and socially distanced and all that stuff. And so this year has kind of been figuring out projects like that. I've been fortunate to have gotten to work some. I think a lot of my colleagues really haven't been able to perform much at all. And I got to do a few performances of Phantom of the Opera at a brand new drive-in that was created called Radial Park in Astoria. They built a drive-in out of shipping containers overlooking Manhattan, overlooking the East River. And we sang a couple of songs from Phantom, and then they played on this big drive-in screen, both they projected our performances, but also played the 25th anniversary concert filmed production of the show. And so people got to come in their cars or on picnic benches and at least have, a spaced out experience of something resembling live performance. And then I've done, a green screen production of Meet Me in St. Louis with the Irish Rep that I filmed entirely from my studio. I would have my director and my other cast members on Zoom and film everything on my phone and then send everything in.
That's
and
crazy.
Our amazing editors. It's crazy, but just the ability of people to be innovative and to try and make things when it wasn't safe for us to be in person. Obviously theater is a very interactive in-person art form, and so we've been trying to simulate that in whatever
We
ways
got to
we
point
can.
out, Ali, you've been Christine in Phantom of the Opera. You were Cosette in Les Mis. You Maria in West Side Story. I mean, those would be the three biggies, and you played
Yeah.
them for an extended period of time. It's not like hello, yep, no, you've been there.
Yeah, so it's pretty wild after you get used to sort of being in a show, having that be your full-time job, then to not have anything closely resembling that at all, has been quite a challenge, I think, for all of
What
us.
were you doing when the world closed down?
I was doing a series of concerts. I had just done a concert in Japan. The year prior, I had been a lot of travel. I was in Taiwan, I was in Dubai, doing concerts all over the country. And I was supposed to go to do a concert with my wonderful friend, Telly Leung, who's worked a lot with Elliott, in Hong Kong. That was our next gig. And that, of course, did not happen because, the pandemic hit and all of that. So I had all these concerts kind of in international travel booked that could not happen. And so I kind of just, had to step back and hang out with my parents and sing to my neighbors.
How is that with that such a break? We've talked to a couple guests in the past about if you don't keep practicing your craft, that fear of losing a little bit of it over all this time. Did you find yourself singing every day, or what kind of was that like, not having active things to be working on at times?
It was really tough. I mean, I think that fear is very real, that, that if we aren't checking in, if we aren't keeping up with the exercises and the warm-ups and all of that stuff, I found that I kind of ebbed and flowed in how much I wanted to sing, or sometimes I just kind of wanted to do some yoga every day and, I don't know, read books and watch television, and, chat with my friends over Zoom and all that stuff. I think that, that a lot of the time, self-care sort of meant checking in to say, what, maybe today or these few weeks, I don't feel like singing, that I can actually just give myself a break that way. And then there were times that, I was excited to create. And so it's been interesting. I think now, now that we know that hopefully everything will be reopening so soon, I think the fear of not being in shape is definitely starting to creep in. And I think we're all trying to condition ourselves as quickly as possible.
At least everybody's in the same boat, right?
It's true. Yes, indeed. I mean, it's so just even like getting used to interacting with people. I got to do, I've been working with this great group, Broadway for Arts Education, and we had a fundraiser, or we're starting to have a fundraiser, and we had a photo shoot. And so we were all out on a rooftop. It was outside. People had masks on. We were socially distant, but the idea of seeing people and casually, right? People that we were acquaintances with, people in the Broadway community. I think everybody was both thrilled and completely overwhelmed at how to socialize again and how to make small talk and, how to recognize people from, just the eyes up and all of those things that we haven't been doing.
Are you ready to get back on stage, to be close with another performer?
I think so. I mean, I think that it's going to be hard to know until we're in those scenarios. I think that, we've taken so much time to be careful that kind of breaking down those, taking those rules away now that, I'm fully vaccinated and understanding exactly what that means, and trusting that everything will be in place. I think that's so much about what reopening will be, is making sure that the people in charge, have our safety, at the highest priority, and that that we know that all of our company members are safe. But I'm definitely willing and ready to look into somebody else's eyes and to get to sing in real time, to make music that way. I think is the thing that's been so hard. Theater is such an interactive medium. The people on stage, the people in the audience, the people in the orchestra, the people behind the scenes, all of it really is such a symbiotic organism that it's really challenging to not have that and just to be making things on our phones.
Yeah, both Ellen and I have done some virtual during this time.
We're done.
I still have one more to do.
Oh, you do?
I still have one more. Yeah. And it's the non-moving, right? It's the not being able to stand up and take your space.
Yes.
And I was imagined as a singer, not to be up and breathing is normal. It's a whole new world that you'd like
It's
to
a whole
leave
different
behind.
thing. Yes. I would love to get back to the place where we have energy that we're, that we get to share together. Just recently, they broadcast a workshop production of The Secret Garden that I've been a part of in 2018. And so I got to watch it, and it was amazing because there was the way that the scene, Come Spirit, Come Charm, had been blocked was basically the entire ensemble was together, and we were all physically connected in some way to help the boy learn how to walk. Right, there's a small child who has never walked before, and so we're physically lifting up his legs. Everybody is sort of supporting each other, and to get to watch that, having not had anything resembling that in this entire year, felt like a completely different world. But I just yearned for the ability to have all of that energy and to be able to touch other people and to share that in a room. I just miss that so much.
When we were talking with Elliott, he's very much socially minded, as you well know, and he's looking ahead to how theater can address this time. And he also mentioned you're involved in a project, Asian American perspective, and a show that might not normally be perceived of as such. So give us some details on that, how it came to be, and what you think about it.
Yes. So basically, a lot of the talk during this time has been, what can we do to make Broadway a more inclusive place, a more diverse place, a place that better reflects the world that we live in, the culture of this country, and sort of what are the ramifications if we don't do stuff like that. If Asian Americans are not properly represented on television, in plays, what happens, unfortunately, is that then they get othered, right? And then it leads to things like all of the really terrible violence that we've been seeing against AAPI people during this time, during the time of the coronavirus. And obviously that's true of people, all different groups of people. The Black Lives Matter movement is very much about spreading awareness, but also spreading understanding of people as entire people, right? As actual human beings, and getting to know people on different levels, and how that breeds this beautiful level of empathy and understanding and connection. And so part of that is just, getting to see different types of faces telling stories and being part of theater and getting to generate theater that they want to be a part of. And so a bunch of my amazing colleagues who are Asian American decided to get together and do one more virtual production of A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, which, when it was on Broadway, was amazing, but was an entirely white cast. And so kind of the idea of saying, Asians can tell this story too. There's no reason, the show is not about race. There's no reason why we can't also participate in something like this. And it would be an amazing opportunity for us to get to play these really great meaty roles. We've pared down the show a bit, so it's a cast of 5. and two of the cast members, Tom Sesma and Cindy Chung, are playing a plethora of different roles in the way that Jefferson Mays did. And so they get to show off all of their amazing comedy and drama and different voices and, and all of that stuff in a way that, oftentimes minority characters are sort of painted into small boxes, are sort of relegated to being supporting roles and don't get to have all of the opportunity to really stretch our muscles and get to perform. And so that's what we're working towards. And we think that, it'll be one of hopefully many things that we'll get to showcase, that we are a part of this community, that we have voices. We have a full team of Asian producers who are really, many of whom are also actors, but are really becoming active in trying to push for the stories that we want to tell and to be active behind the table and behind the scenes also.
And do we get to see it?
I don't know yet. We've just started rehearsals. So hopefully the group is called Collaboration, with Asian AZIAN. And that website will have all of the information, but we're hoping, I believe, is a mid-June viewing for all of that. But we're in the process of putting the whole thing together. And we did a run through, or it was really a read through, but ended up being a run through last night. And the talent is out of this world and absolutely beyond. And Alan Maroka is directing, and many people know him from his years on Sesame Street, and he's been directing on Sesame Street as well. And just the way that he's broken down the script and figured out all the shots and figured out how to work, in this medium of doing virtual things and green screens and all of that is incredibly inspiring. He has such a strong vision for it that I think will be really, really wonderful.
What about the slamming doors?
We don't know yet. I know he's gonna have to figure that out somehow. There's already looks to the right and the left and all of that, and we can put some things in post, I guess. But we already have some great backdrops that will look like the show. And I don't know. We'll all have our apartment doors. My poor neighbors can be like, why does she keep slamming that door?
It's not in the contract. It's not in your lease. That's great. So what else? What else is down the pike? When do you have something lined up that you're looking at to be back on stage?
I'm not sure. I've got some things that are hopeful that we're just sort of waiting for the world to be as it is. I'm hoping to get to perform at the Muni again in St. Louis this summer, which would be really, really wonderful. They have such a great setup, and it's outdoors, and the audience is outdoors, and it seats 11,000 people in normal time. So even if people are socially distancing, there would still be room for theater to be created, I think, in that space. So I'm hopeful for that. There's a wonderful musical called Gold Mountain that I've been working on, that my friend Jason Ma wrote, and that is about the Chinese workers who helped build the Central Pacific Railroad. And so we've been working on that for some time. We got to do it in Utah a couple of years ago, and we're hoping to return to get to do some in-person performances of that in this coming year, provided that all is well with the world. And that would be really amazing. It's a really beautiful, beautiful story. And it's been doing some incredible things for really getting these workers to be recognized. And I think that's part of the story that, so many people built this country that we don't often discuss or willing to talk about.
Ali, somebody raised the question with me, and Ellen, I don't think you and I even discussed this, but once live theater starts again, what happens to the stage door post-show?
I know. I don't know. It's tough because I understand, as it stands right now, the equity rules, say, people can't come backstage and greetings at the stage door and all of that, but that is so much a part of the experience. I mean, I know that when I was doing Phantom for, about 2.5 years, but I had so many incredible interactions at that stage door and fans that would come over and over again. And I myself, I grew up in Westchester County, so I came to see Broadway shows, and I would stage door. I've got many pictures of myself, waiting for Lea Salonga's autograph and waiting for all these other amazing performers to sign my playbill. So I don't know. I mean, I know there are many sort of virtual ways to do that, and social media, I think, has opened us up to being able to have access to our fans and supporters in a way that, didn't exist before. So I don't know that that's really the proper substitute, but I think there has to be sort of a line between making sure that everybody is safe and also making sure that, that I think what's so special about Broadway is that access that, that fans get to really express their admiration and gratitude to the performers and vice versa, because we recognize that, the audiences are such an integral part to what we're doing.
Now, kind of going back to the collaboration, and you're talking about making sure that there are opportunities for minorities. I think a lot of theaters use this pause to really sit back and think about the structure of their company or production, whatever it is, and hopefully moving forward from that, and hopefully people will take the action they said they're doing. In your opinion, what are some things that you think could come out of this pause for actors and writers and creators of a minority?
Yeah, I think that, as you said, it's a wonderful opportunity because we sort of stepped back and because we've realized sort of what very real and dangerous ramifications happen if we don't have proper representation on stage, if we don't make the effort to include everybody. And so I think that, I hope that people will continue to be inspired to tell diverse stories. I think we've realized that, the diversity in the theater has to come at all levels. It's not just the ensemble of a show. It's not just the principals of the show. It's the casting offices, it's the agents, it's the producers, it's everybody that is in any sort of decision-making position, because it makes sense that, you are going to want to tell stories that reflect your life experience, which is why, if we only have a certain subset of people who get to choose what stories are being told, they're going to tell stories that only reflect one sort of thing. But I think that people are realizing that actually it's financially advantageous to tell a diversity of stories, to reach larger groups, to have people being excited to come to the theater because they see themselves reflected, and then get to learn about, all of these different cultures and life experiences that they didn't have before. And I hope that people are realizing that it's, that it's important on so many different levels, and it's not just for charity or for show, but actually could be for, for the greater good of theater existing as a commercial medium, and as a medium that really can change hearts and minds.
Oh, we see what's happened with the Golden Globes and
yes,
the overhaul that is going to have to happen. I mean, NBC is not even going to air it next year because of the situation that has been allowed to continue. And it goes on until somebody finally stands up and says, no more. This can't go on, please. And maybe not even the please. And then you think about the whole Scott Rudin and Elliott had brought that up situation. It's hard. I can't imagine as a young woman in the theater standing up and pointing the finger at the person who holds your livelihood in their hands. My hat's off. She strikes a blow, opens the door for everybody, really, because it's women mostly, but a lot of men too. I would imagine that's been a conversation amongst you and your friends, Ali.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's, it's as you said, it's scary. It's challenging, especially when, we don't necessarily hold a lot of the power. And I think that that's part of what, part of this collaboration and groups like it are trying to change in actually taking some of the power for ourselves and saying we can produce things. We can also have some of this say, and so that we're not entirely beholden to people that can be horrible bullies or can wield their power in a way that is not responsible or kind or just, and that that we need to sort of to widen the base of who it is that gets to be in control of all these things.
I'm going to switch gears on you for a second. You had to go from pack it up, go to the theater every day to I need a green screen. I need a camera. How did you make that shift so fast? And what are you going to do with all that stuff?
Oh gosh, I know. It's been, I think I bought my first ring light and I was like, oh, that's terrible. And then I bought a second ring light and I was figuring out all this stuff. Luckily, actually, when I was doing Meet Me in St. Louis, the Irish rep was kind enough to gift us all, our green screens and our box lights and our different different things that we were using. And so I'm not sure. I have a feeling, that they, at least for, on-camera auditions, that they will kind of keep this model of at least, first auditions being self-taped. So for better or for worse, we've all learned a bit about lighting, a bit about sound, a bit about how to edit things on iMovie, a bit about, what it takes to do all of these different things. I think that, we've been acquiring some skills, at least, or trying to, but it's certainly been a learning curve. And we've, heavily relied on significant others and friends over Zoom to be our readers for auditions, and gotten used to having to watch ourselves all day long. It's a change.
I think of some of the stuff that I've uploaded and going, no, did I really send that out?
I know.
Did you have one of those? Please tell me you had one of those moments. It's not just, us.
Oh, of course. Oh, constantly. No, I think, one of the biggest challenges for me during this time is that I, on Zoom, on FaceTime, on whatever, any self-tape I'm sending, I have to look at myself. Usually, the beauty of theater is that you go out on stage and other people look at what you're doing, and then it's gone, and then they can't pick it apart later on. It's fleeting, it's beautiful and fleeting, and this time is anything but. Everything is, saved on my phone for me to torture myself by wondering why I sang that note that way, forevermore.
You work out the timing, you're a pianist, you're a accompanist, because there can be that little bit of lag.
Yeah, no, it's impossible to do anything over Zoom. It becomes a, how do I hit the track on my computer? I've done a fair amount of virtual concerts, right? And figuring out the sound of that they can hear the balance of the music and me singing, and getting tracks in advance and all of that stuff. And the way that, I think what I miss so much is being able to do a lovely rubato or a fermata, or, to have the music ebb and flow, and for the musicians and I to feel that together, and to, to do a cadenza and know that they'll be there to catch me, as opposed to counting out the beats and knowing that I have to catch them wherever they are. It's made us sort of meticulous that way, but it's not nearly as fun as actually getting to collaborate in person.
What do you want to see? What's open? Stuff that's opening. Do you have a list that, I don't know if it's a show you didn't get to see before while you were working, you've got friends in it, you want to throw eggs? I don't know, it's.
I want to see everything. I want to see Company. I haven't gotten to see Company yet. I have a whole bunch of friends in that. I want to see Six. I've never seen a production of Six, and I think I've heard such exciting things about that show. I mean, really anything at this point. I will sit. I love watching theater so much. Usually when I'm not working, or even on my off days, I'll try and find a way to see shows. And so I think I will just be so grateful to get to watch people perform live again.
Yeah. Shall we ask her some questions, Vanita? So the ending of our interview is always the close-up segment, which are some personal questions just all about you, Ali. So are you ready for your close-up?
I am, yes.
So what was the moment in your life when you just knew you had to do theater?
Oh gosh. It's funny. I think it sort of came in different waves. Part of it was when I got to see my first Broadway show when I was 8 years old. I saw A Chorus Line, which in retrospect was probably a little too young to be watching A Chorus Line. But I had I have two amazing aunts who live in Queens. And they would take us to go see Broadway shows. And Tita Myrna, unfortunately, has since passed away, but she loved musical theater. And so she took us to see it, and I completely fell in love with it. And then I got to do the Yestin Kopit version of Phantom when I was 10 years old. I played the little girl at the Westchester Broadway Theater, and I would just sit backstage and watch all of the actors, and I was in complete awe of everything that they were doing. And then I had a little bit of a denial phase where I thought maybe I should go to school and study something more practical. And so I went to Yale University. I ended up being a psychology major, but I was performing all the time extracurricularly. And then once I graduated, I decided that, I really had to give it a go. I had been taking voice lessons and doing theater all the time over the summers and all of that stuff. But yeah, so I think it's been many, many moments that sort of led me to here.
So having a psychology degree, has that impacted your acting at all?
I think so. I think that, so much of psychology is just understanding why people behave the way that they do. And I think that that is so much, a part of what acting is. And I think a lot of it is even just the curiosity to kind of delve into characters. I like to talk often about, say, Christine in Phantom of the Opera, for example. I saw Phantom when I was 10 years old, totally fell in love with Christine as this like beautiful ingenue that lifted her arms and was led by the Phantom, had this beautiful posture, and was always sort of an angst, but didn't really get to think about who she was as a person. And so when I finally got to play the role, I really wanted to kind of excavate and understand why she was even willing to go with this masked man in the first place, why she was willing to take voice lessons in her dressing room from a disembodied voice. And so for me, it was all about her grief. It was about her dealing with the loss of her father and sort of what that had opened up in her life, what that led her to be open to, and all of that, and how that helps her make decisions. And so things like that, I think it's really exciting to kind of delve into even characters that we seem to know really well, why they're behaving as humans.
And what did your family think when you said, I'm going to do it? I'm going to make the leap and try to go to Broadway?
They have always been incredibly supportive. I'm pretty sure my mom is still terrified that I'm never going to work again and that I will never be able to eat or pay my rent. No, they come to every single show that I do often, and they totally love it, and they've done nothing but support me. But I think it's challenging. I don't come up from a family of performers at all, and so I think not really understanding how that works, and particularly as a parent, you just want the best for your child, and so I think it's been often a little terrifying.
You have an extensive resume, and you have done really soup to nuts and some of the biggest roles there are. So,
yeah.
How long were you in the biz before you hit Broadway?
I was, let's see, about 2 years. It was pretty fast.
Nice.
2.5 years. Yeah. Because I got to do Cosette in Les Mis, and so because I had first worked for Disney in California at the Aladdin stage show, and then I worked for Disney in Japan, and then I came back and did the Les Mis tour, which then led to the Broadway cast. So thankfully that was pretty quick, but then it took me almost a decade to get back on Broadway. I worked in the interim, but I didn't do another Broadway show until I did The King and I at Lincoln Center, and then Phantom came right after that. So there have been certainly, twists and turns in there.
Best audition experience, worst audition experience?
Oh, best audition experience had to be my final Phantom callback. It was on stage at the Majestic, which is the thing that I feel like only happens in television shows anymore. But I got to be on stage. The chandelier was just like right in my eye line, right in its resting position. The Hal Prince was sitting in the 5th row. And so I just got to stand on the stage and sing for the man, think of me, in this theater that I had sort of dreamt of performing in for so many years. And that was really wonderful. And then Hal gave me a bunch of notes on my diction, which I thought was great because I was totally fine with, being able to work on my diction. And he was very supportive, and it was kind of just an in and out. I had flown in from Chicago, and it was all a little bit surreal, but really wonderful. My worst audition, oh gosh, I'm not quite sure. This probably isn't the worst experience because it ended up being okay. But as I was flying, I flew in for my callback for Les Mis. And as I was going to warm up, or going between the warm up and the audition, a bird pooped all over me, all over my bag that I was bringing, my little overnight bag, and my little audition dress and my hair. And so I showed up at this audition completely mortified, just like trying to pick stuff out, in the bathroom. And it ended up being kind of a wonderful icebreaker because I had to go in and explain to everybody why I looked a complete mess. So I think it ended up being a good thing.
God rest my mother's soul. She always said, that's good luck.
Yes, that's what they say, and I did get the job, so I will take it for what it is.
I think it was pretty mortifying. So you don't feel so bad because then a bird pooped on you.
I think that's exactly right.
And the show you wish you could do again?
Oh gosh, I wish I could do Carnival again. I did a teeny tiny musical tonight version of Carnival. It was essentially a staged reading, but I just love that music. Nobody ever does that show anymore, and it's so beautiful. And I found that it sat in this lovely place in my voice, and it was fun to, to be that sort of open and innocent and discovering things. That I played a character who was in love with puppets, but there was something really kind of heartwarming about getting to go through that journey, and I just love the music so much. So I would love to really dig in and get to do it again.
Well, you've just put it out in the universe.
Indeed.
That's half of it.
And no pressure. I know that Elliott said that you maybe would be willing to share a vocal track with us that we could put in the episode. So I don't know if you have something that you could send us so our listeners could hear.
Oh, sure. Yes. I will see. Yes, I will see any particular requests. I'll see what I can find.
The one you like the best.
Okay, perfect. I will find something for you that I don't hate the most, maybe.
Oh yeah, she's an actress.
Yeah.
We don't even have to ask, do these pants make my butt look big? Because we think that no matter what.
Yes, indeed.
And it's never the case. Oh, Ali, this has been great. It's just such a delight to talk with you, and wish you the very best. Really looking forward to seeing the production coming up. And again, the website, so that nobody forgets, is that we'll see it at?
It's www.collaborationazian.com.
Wonderful. Looking forward to it. Break a leg.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
It's lovely talking to you, Ali, and we're excited to see what you've got coming up. Keep us posted. And all our listeners, this has been really fun on this super long episode that is incredibly exciting. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Think of me fondly when we've said goodbye. Remember me every so often. Promise me you'll try. On that day, that not so distant day, when you were far away and free. If you ever find a moment, spare a thought for me. Though it was always clear that this was never meant to be, if you happen to remember, stop and think of me. Think of August when the world was green. Don't think about the way things might have been. Think of me waking, sighing.